And we're live. Beat People Podcast 81. I'm just gonna call this season something or another. Is it 5? How many years we've been doing this thing?
73.
Man. Yeah.
We're old.
7 or 3 or 7?
No, 73. We're senior citizens in this here game.
This is Beat People Podcast coming to you from so, it's Beat People Podcast 81, and it's good to be back, man. We've taken a little bit of hiatus. Okay, everybody had all kinds of things to do. I got my man Ken Flux Pierce. I got my man Upright, and we got special guest Peter Brown from Roland. He's going to be talking about the SP404 MKII, and there's been a lot of discussion all over the place about this joint. So I'm happy to have him here. We can kind of talk about this stuff. And shout out to my man D Still. I wish he was here, but he's somewhere saving the world as he always does. So yeah, let's get started. Yo. Peter, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. Good to have you. Let's see who we got in the chat. Just a few shout outs. We got some of the usual suspects. Some guy named Beats and Guitars. Not sure who that is. Hey, what's up to Charles Brown? We got Why Not in the place. Izzo, Curry Cases. Yeah, man. So be sure to firstly, as we get this going, be sure to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get them going. So I think we'll start like this. Pete, tell us a little bit about your background, just kind of to preface the folks a little bit.
Well, how far back? Like
when I was 2, I
as a young boy from Connecticut,
right now,
I took piano lessons.
So how'd you end up doing what you do today?
Sure, yeah. So I moved to LA probably right after college to work in film and video game music, and I was working at a film music studio for a while. I did a couple video game scores, and I was looking for something that was a little bit different. I'd always been doing a lot of software instrument design, stuff that I learned in college, like using Reactor to build my own stuff in software, MaximSP, that type of thing.
Nice.
And I saw online, actually, I had bought this thing with my first big paycheck. I bought, I don't know if you could see it, the V-Synth XT up there.
Oh, wow. Dope.
And I didn't really have any reason to buy it, except for I had a Juno D when I was growing up, my first electric piano that my parents bought me. And that was a Roland. So I was like, oh, okay. They make like hardware, I guess. I was like raised in software. Funny. I'm part of a software generation. So, I kind of came into hardware basically when I started working for Roland. So I saw a ad on their website saying, hey, we're hiring tech support for our dance and DJ product category. Here's what you need to know. Here's your kind of qualifications. And I was like, oh, that seems simple enough. And I joined, and they then immediately released the first IRA series, TR8, TB3, VT3. That's what happened. So I immediately got thrown into kind of the biggest thing Roland had did in like 10 years or something like that was that product line. Fast forward a little bit, I kind of go from being a tech support person to being a more product specialist person, traveling a lot all over the country, doing demos, things like that, supporting dealers, talking to customers, going to NobCon constantly, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of a nerd, so I know a little bit of Japanese, so I was able to relate to our engineers a little bit and like kind of geek out. So that really helped build a relationship close enough where I could feel comfortable talking to them directly. Mm-hmm. For better or for worse.
Let me ask though, because I feel like we need to go further into the stack now. Why do you know a little bit of Japanese?
Man, no doubt.
I'm a total closet weeb. So,
man, to learn Japanese is not easy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Man, It's pretty tough, but you watch enough anime and movies that you pick up on some really basic stuff, and then you try to apply it, and then realize you're being like super rude the entire time, and it's like, oh shit, sorry. Like,
I impressed my wife one time just because we were in Cannes, France, and we met this lady, and she said where she was from. I was like, "Oh, cool, arigato," and she replied. My wife was like, "What?" I was like, "That's all I know, and I just know that because of like how I said that." Arigato to all my people in Japan, but I digress. So, that's pretty dope, man. So you came through, like, you got the job because you saw the thing and you applied and it worked out. You were a good fit. And so, is this the first product that you've been product owner of? And is that even am I saying the right?
that's a good question. I mean, Roland's huge, and we make a lot of products, and
Yeah.
that's something that it's good to put it in perspective how much stuff we do, how many instruments we make every year in how many different categories. So that combined with, the engineering folks being in Japan has a lot of interesting challenges. So normally what we do is that we have like two bodies of people. One does the research and plans the products and says, hey, here's some opportunity, here's what people are saying, and then the other team are the builders, the people that actually construct it, and those guys are geniuses in their own right. But there's a lot of challenges if you're based in Hamamatsu, which is kind of a rural area south of Tokyo, between Tokyo and Kyoto. They might not know what like the latest situation is, so it's kind of been a initiative on their part to incorporate more global people. I'm part of a very small team of 3 guys that now work for the headquarters directly in an effort to kind of become a little bit more, I guess, globalized and like in touch with what people are asking for and being a little bit more intimate with that process. So my technical title is product planning manager, and I work in the planning group, and I'm part of the team of people that does that research and goes to trade shows and stores to talk to customers. Not so much in COVID times, everybody's remote, but kind of taking that a step further and saying like, okay, this is the product type that we should do. Here's how many knobs it needs. Here's the kind of system that I think could work, and taking it beyond just saying, hey, wouldn't it be a cool idea if we like did a drum machine? It's like, well, what does that
What's
mean?
that mean? All right, yeah.
Like,
Man.
what kind of drum machine?
So real quick, it sounds like you have there's a lot of in-depth involvement there, man. I'm curious to know how you got on the SP404 side of things. And I mean, just a shout out to you, man. You killed it the way you brought all this together. I mean, I'm just wondering how you got brought into that aspect of everything.
So it's a good question, and it's important to know, like, this is a huge team effort from a lot of different people, and we'd been wanting to do a 404 for years. We, as in like global Roland, and there just wasn't really the time and like the right set of circumstances to do it. The SX and the A perform really well. The people, it still had a vested interest in like from the sales world. It was like one of the most stable things that we made, and people still really liked it. So you have to approach it from a business perspective. Does it make sense to then upgrade it, or are we good now? Kind of letting this ride out. So one of the first things that I did when I went over there in my new capacity, I had some research that was made 4 years ago of like people using 404s and wanting like a specific set of features. That was gathered by my coworker Christian. He put together this great deck, but it kind of sat and collected dust for a while. So I was like, hey, what about this? And like, here's some actual modern stats. We did that 404 day, I think was 2 years ago, maybe last year or 2 years ago. We did a whole kind of marketing celebration of like 404 culture with like Flying Lotus interviews. The late Ross G was also featured in that. DiBiase.
And it felt like that wasn't very long after Ross G passed away too. But yeah,
it was right around that time frame. So it was almost and we had great engagement statistics from that. Like clearly, like the interest was big enough, and then the engineers couldn't really ignore it anymore. So in me in my new role, I said, listen, this is what we need to do.
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to have a coworker over there, Sherrado. And this is much his baby as it is my baby.
Man.
He kind of resonated with that. We connected over all sorts of stuff. And you remember there's the two groups of people, the planners and like the kind of engineers. He's the kind of top guy of the engineers. So we immediately hit it off. We geeked out over all sorts of weird music and said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we worked on this together? So that's kind of how that got started. And it was like a project for over a year and a half building this thing.
Man,
That's dope that you all kind of worked as champions for each other. It seems too, though, because I mean, it probably helped amplify the idea of doing a project like this within Roland. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, there's a lot of like underground and like hidden achievements that this product makes from like an internal perspective. Like it's championing. It's like the most high tech product in our category right now, which is really dope, considering we have the TR8S and the MCs. They're all very advanced in their own way, but this thing is on another level, on a very low level, like CPU based type of thing. It does a lot of really, really cool and interesting things. So from a roadmap perspective, I would love to kind of see this be the new standard of what we do.
No doubt. You know what I like about the way you all rolled out, and I think you kind of almost spoke to it a little bit. Just the idea that you stay close to the community of it. I'm always about that. You know what I mean? And even when I pull up the webpage here, well, obviously I see you there, but then you have DiBiase and just people that are known for rocking with this joint. And I feel like that's probably just because you all keep your hands in the community. So
Definitely.
is that like an important part to you? Is that something that you and your counterpart kind of bring to the situation, or is it one of those things where it's part of research and what happens?
No, Sherrado and I did a ton of early interviews with some select 404 people, artists, and basic customers. It's important to get, kind of even hobbyist perspective, why they choose to buy a 404. Like, why did you get this thing if you're not a professional musician or something? We talked to all sorts of people to get kind of like what they like about not just 404s, but SPs in general. Talk about the 303 vinyl sim versus 404 vinyl sim and this crazy like mystique of like the whole product category that doesn't really exist in like other instruments, not even at Roland. It's this very specific thing, so you need to get intimate with that and like understand people's passions and why they like stuff. Why do they like the compressor? Even though it's like sounds absolutely ridiculous, it has a sound.
Man,
and people really like it.
Yep.
But wait, isn't that's kind of almost like part of Roland's legacy? Like, think about all of those classic machines, y'all. That like every drum machine, go ahead and name them, whatever they are, 808s, the 909s, and all of that, the 303. I mean, I personally grew up in Chicago where all of the house music and electronic music was the 303, and I was like, enough with the 303. But that just speaks to the fact that it's so classic. I couldn't hear you, Ken. But it just speaks to the fact that it's so classic, right? And so a lot of people at first, what was the 808s and 909s were very reasonably priced because drummers at that time were kind of like on the tilt of, that don't sound like no drums. I don't know why anybody would do that. But then hip hop and dance music cats picked those things up and made them things of legend. So like you have things in those genres that are like, yo, that compressor or that drum machine sounds like crap. And all of us are like, yeah.
That's that sound, man. It's like sounds so dirty and over the top, but in a good way. Roland is at its best when we make the most ridiculous stuff, I think, and we got to really lean into that. You don't want to make a boring product that just kind of is a jack of all trades, master of none type of thing. I think you should just really have a focused instrument that does one thing really well, and if its thing sounds ridiculous when it's compressed and has these crazy simulator effects, then man, that's what we got to do.
Yeah, I've been kind of hanging back, listening to Corey talk and then expound on his hip house hate again, which is nothing new. Don't Don't worry about that. I love the 303. So. Matter of fact, I was using my Zox box the other day. But no, one of the things about this project that really jumped out at me, and I don't know how much this has to do with this being your first product and kind of a different direction. I bought one right away. Like, and I don't do that. Like, I'm not that guy. A lot of the times I'm like, if I'm not directly associated with a product, I have so many other projects going on that I'm like, I don't really need to buy gear. But when I see something really special, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to investigate that. I investigated it for like 2 minutes, and I was like, no, this is right up my alley. And there's specific reasons for it. One is the battery aspect of it, and then there was some forward-thinking aspects about it that really jumped out at me. The ability to sample from an iPhone with one cable, like just plug in, sit on the couch and pair of headphones, iPhone, and I have an entire sample library ahead of me, and I can just do some fun stuff, and I can work in a kind of committed method where it's like I don't have to overthink what I'm doing. I like this idea of like kind of laying things down and then moving forward with it. But what jumped out at me is so there's an iOS app called Koala, and I see like some of those interesting features from Koala jump out at me on this. And what's great is I'm more of a tactile person. Like, I have a ton of iPad apps and all that stuff, but I buy them and then I don't use them because I don't like the non-tactile feel of it. So was this something that you kind of were like aware of what was happening in the landscape externally, like from anything from like MSX's low fly tape to like Koala to just the different iOS apps in general in the portable space, and then applying that to a more tactile hands-on experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. The beat maker scene as far as iOS instruments go was a really big surprise to me. I had to rely a lot on our now kind of I don't know, I guess he's the old me at Roland US, Jay Ibarra. He's a huge resource in the SP community as a moderator in all sorts of SP forums, but the way that he makes music is so like bonkers because he uses iOS Koala combined with SP stuff.
We're talking about Cryptnip, right?
Yeah, Cryptnip.
We're talking about Cryptnip. Yeah,
I just want to give him a shout out.
Yeah, exactly. Cryptnip. He's using a pen and like kind of penciling in music and then sampling it. I'm like, what are you doing? People make music like this?
He's
so I had to ask him all sorts
writing
of
music.
Yeah, I'm just like, what is it? You look like you're taking notes at an office or something. But you have to ask people like, what are your tools and why do you like them? So him and I had a lot of conversations as to why do people even like Koala. What's the ideal scenario where a person would use Koala, but also a hardware unit? That USB connectivity thing was, kind of a solution for that. It's just a means to provide people with more of an easy sampling experience from literally anything. Now you can basically use.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally calls me to, like, I hit my boy up like right away, like, yeah, what kind of deal can you get me? Like, let's make this happen right now, because I love the idea of sitting elsewhere outside of my studio, because I spend most of my day in my studio, and I'm like, a lot of the times you want to get inspiration in other places, whatever, or I'm getting yelled at for being in the studio too long. Now I'm outside of the studio, but I'm still doing studio things. So like, I have like a pocket operator and stuff like that is great, but they are very a lot of these other tools, for instance, the Volca sample to me is a perfect example of what not to do. So it's like you have this great little laptop device that you can play around with, but it's a sampler that you can't sample into. You have to import. Like I hate that. Like thoroughly hate that. I feel like that's one of the worst things in the world. Don't ever do it, and I will burn your house down. But when I see this, I'm like, okay, so
arson contemplation, ladies and gentlemen.
when I look at this though, I got excited because I'm like, okay, so I'm probably not gonna like, and this is my first impression when I was like, okay, I'm probably not gonna get the editing that I want. I'm probably not gonna get this that I want, but I can do this, and this, and I can save it. And then as I start watching more and more videos, I'm like, oh snap, like, okay, the sequencer's been deeply improved. I'm like, oh, hold on, like now that's just not like a number digit display. Like that's a straight OLED display. Now I haven't touched one. It looks almost like there's like a magnifying glass over that to expand it a little bit. Is that right, or is it just circular? Is it like a bubble?
It's the form factor of the original 404s.
Yeah.
Use this circular kind of design language, and the funny story behind that is at the time, like Gundam and G-Shock watches were really, really trendy, especially in Japan. And so if you look at an old SX, it looks like a G-Shock watch. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So the screen on it is rectangular, but we're still making it look like a 404. I don't know if it would have the same.
But what I'm asking is like, is the glass piece on it, is it like domed so it makes the screen look bigger than it actually is? Like so that it kind of magnifies it.
No, I think it's basically transparent.
The old one kind of had that. I think the old one kind of had that feel, like a magnification feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, well, man, you could just throw a little screen on it and bubble it out, make it huge, whatever.
I got you. Yeah,
but no, like the ability to have that screen on there, like it's nice having the animations that you guys have on there. That's all like aesthetically pleasing stuff, which is great. But really what got me is the fact that, oh, well, like now we have waveform editing. And like, you know, that's like little things like that are pretty huge for that.
That's huge. And that's kind of one of the things I want to get along with what Ken said and what Brian is posting up here. What are some of, like, I guess, maybe the top handful of things that's been improved or added to the MK2?
Yo, I can answer this. No, go ahead.
Bryce has been on research mode heavy.
Just globally across the board, right? That's
the sequencer. Okay. Sequencer, yeah.
No, across the board. Then we'll get to the sequencer.
Okay. Well, let's start with the sequencer. The sequencer, we now have a page that's called record setting, where you go into it and you can immediately adjust like how long your pattern is, like in terms of length. You can set it all the way up to 64 bars. You have adjustable input quantize is now a floating percentage. It's not just like on or off, which the old ones had that. You can change that on the fly too. So as you're recording, you can kind of switch it to a softer quantize or something that's a little bit more strict.
Okay.
There's also shuffle amount as well. That's really cool. There's a very like simple pattern edit that lets you crop or duplicate patterns internally. So if you capture an idea, you can isolate it and then loop it. There's also a pattern chaining mode where you can chain patterns together and have it kind of cycle and play in order. That's really good for, basic kind of song construction. And there's a lot of like
patterns. How many patterns can you chain?
Up to 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So up to a 16th pattern. Yeah. You can also do things like, I don't know if it's like the sequencer and the sampling kind of blur together on this in a very interesting way. So like 16 velocity has been implemented where you can kind of have a one set velocity for each pad. So you can do dynamics really well and really easily. But you could also resample patterns while it's playing, which was a big thing that old SP heads were really frustrated at. You couldn't play a pattern and then resample it as audio to kind of manipulate it. Right. We fixed that problem and even added the ability to kind of isolate what you're resampling. Are you resampling everything? Are you resampling the stuff that's just going into the input so you can kind of layer something in?
Can you do that as a fixed length?
As a fixed length?
Yeah. So like if you're doing that, do you have to start and stop it manually, or can you just have it resample that to a specific, like okay, this is 4 bars. I want those 4 bars.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's one of the features I think a lot of people want is like a fixed length loop recorder. You know what I mean? Or resampling. thing. So I don't know if that's in there or not.
The fixed length is not. There's no kind of ending quantized, but that's a great idea that we can probably consider. As far as like recording start, that's something that can be done in just like wait for the note or pick up when it loops back around and then it starts recording. There's a lot of those types of things.
Well, I'll just tell you, just so you know, Peter, because Ken brought that up, fixed length. If you all end up doing a feature like that, he's going to want you to call it flux length.
No. No.
It's flexible.
In fact, I get irritated when people call things flux. I get that a lot. And I'm like, no. I didn't design that. No, I actually have a question about how the culture at Roland is right now for you and this device. The 404 kind of lives in a strange world at Roland, it seems, because there was the 404. Before that, there was the 303. The 404 was like a direct iteration of the 303 and like evolving what that product was. And really from that, like the 202 Dr. Sample and all that stuff. But it seemed like the 404, then we had the SX, right, which gave us what SD card, and then we had the A, which was the same as the SX, but new, just new look and had a couple of updates under the hood to make everything work. So now we have the MK2, and I guess the question really is, in my mind at least, okay, you brought it up. You have a V-Synth there, okay? And Roland has a history of kind of like some things they may stick to for a good while and some things maybe not. So when we talk about like, oh yeah, like it'd be great to have this or great to have that. I bought this thing knowing what it does today, right? Not at all looking at like, oh, well, what might they add? Do you guys have any kind of like planned in, like, yeah, we're willing to update this thing a few times? Or are you more just like, we'll see how the community handles it and go from there?
Well,
which I know is a difficult question.
we do have a roadmap for this product in terms of what it does now, and then what we want it to do, like say a year from now,
sure,
or 2 years from now. There's things that when you're testing it internally and you're getting barraged with bugs and feature requests and ideas and complaints and all this stuff, and it's a full-time job to kind of prioritize things, and Sharado and I had to spend a lot of time to figure out, well, what's feasible for like the price point for when we want to finish this thing by.
That makes total sense.
A whole lot of stuff. So the stuff that doesn't make it in doesn't like go off into a vacuum. It's something that we're kind of archiving as, putting together a roadmap for the future. If we want, we can kind of, invest time and effort into making that happen. But you don't want to be too strict, because people might get this thing and, like you just said, quantized ending, resample length type of thing. That's something that's very interesting and a novel idea, which I can't say for sure if we'd be able to do that, but getting some information from customers that have tried it. We want to be flexible to kind of adapt and say like, oh, okay, people are kind of wanting to do this.
Sure.
Not to get
to adjust your priorities a little bit according to the community.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of how we designed this thing, is like, we had to listen to, every kind of minute detail as to how people use this, which as it turns out, people use 404s incredibly differently. It's a very open platform type of product. Some people don't even touch the sequencer, and they make songs completely by resampling, which boggles my mind, but people do that, and you have to understand how they do that and why they like doing that.
Something that I feel like it would be difficult to when you have a lot of beta testers, you have a lot of feedback, and you all have a huge community. I feel like it would be difficult to just keep things on the rails and not sometimes, especially in the beat making community, and maybe even the synth community, sometimes there's this tendency to want to make everything into everything. And I always say everything ain't everything.
Yeah.
That is philosophical straight up.
Yeah.
It's the SPs are SPs, the MPCs are MPCs, machines are machines. You know what I mean? Like, and we have this tendency to be like, It's almost like, you know, you buy a car and it's you know, a standard, you know, drive thing, and then somebody's like, why does it also have the stick shift? And it's like, yo, why, you don't need all the damn clutches and sticks all over the place.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a way out kind of analogy, but I'm just saying it seems though like that would be a tough thing just to kind of be able to say, well, the SP404 is this, and we want to improve it, but still keep it in its lane. Does that become like a difficult thing to do?
That's a great question. I mean, you have experience, Corey, with your products, with the effect product, and then your fantastic new wavetable module. Yeah. There's like a focus with those instruments, with those products, and you really need to know when to stop adding stuff. You know, they call it feature creep, when features just creep their way in and stuff gets past, you know, me and goes right to engineering, and then it's like, wait, where did this thing come from? Why do we need this? And then, you know, the form factor and the UI of this is really specific. So when people say, oh, what about like having a step sequencer or something like that in it? I have to think like, well, what is the UI solution for that? Like, is it better to include something that's like kind of clunky and then gets in the way of what the product is supposed to do? Or is it better to just like take in everybody and or every kind of feedback and try to figure it out? I'm kind of more of the former, because I think the intention of this product is really like, people know what it is. It's a sampler.
Absolutely. You know? Yep.
That's one of the reasons why I bought it, because I looked at it and I was like, it's not trying to be something that it's not. It's just like a proper evolution of where the 404 culture is moving. And I'm like, you know, to me, I got excited about it because I was like, yeah, it looks like you buy it for what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you buy it to be working in this new workflow that, like, I've got SP2400 or S2400. I've got MPC 2000 XL and, you know, Live and Force and all these different workflows, and they're all cool. They're all fun. And it's like, that's another very definitive, like, the SP workflow and the SP vibe is a legitimate vibe that shouldn't be like just thrown away for the fact of like making something new.
Yo, so real quick. Well, yeah.
Go for it, man.
I was just gonna say, what about a grid, like to nudge notes on the grid? So, you know, if you're in the pattern sequencer, is that something too far fetched to, you know, nudge notes, move notes in that around on a grid?
It's possible. I can't say if we would be able to do something like that or anything. I could tell my personal opinion, and I'm not the only stakeholder with this product.
Sure.
But my personal opinion is that the sequencer on a 404 was never meant to be like this DAW-like type of experience.
Yeah. Right.
Its strength is in its simplicity, and that's how you get people making fantastic music that sounds really intricate and interesting, is with a really basic sequencer that just kind of does what it does, and it sounds how it sounds.
Right.
That's just my personal opinion.
No, I would agree with you. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the experience difference between using Ableton if you could just micromanage everything?
Gotcha.
The sample editing on this thing, I actually talked to people that were really wary of like the waveform and seeing the fact that you can zoom in and adjust your start point, and people were like intimidated by that, or they're like, no, it's going to lose all the feeling. But then you got to then recognize, okay, you can actually chop in real time too. You're not going to lose that.
It's a really valid complaint, because that's one of the things that you know, like working on the S2400, I was like, you know, hey, you know, we don't want to always be super fine about everything and that kind of thing. But you give the ability to do it. So, and then it becomes a matter of like, well, if I really want that workflow, like how much discipline do I have? And then as you were talking about feature creep, it's like, well, then it becomes, okay, we'll implement features that just won't take you away from it being what we intend it to be, you know, and not the whole design by committee of like, you gotta, you know, if you've got 1 million people in the room all saying it should be something different, then it comes out being mush, you know? Like if everybody's putting their own color on the canvas, then it just turns into this brown, ugly, purple mush, you know? So you don't want that. It's like sometimes reeling things back and painful decisions can sometimes end up creating gold, you know?
Simple stuff like the connections on the back now being 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
That on. I thank you, by the way. I hate using all those adapters and stuff that I had to. I can remember going and doing a show with the 404, and man, there was so much. Like I just had a couple ratty adapters. It was my fault, but still. I needed those adapters in order to do that. And then I was there for a long time. Like, how about if I hold it that way? If I do it that way? All right, somebody bring me some tape. We had to get surgicals. That's more of my problem. But just the fact that it's 1/4 inch now, and it's not a big deal. That was a dope inclusion.
I've had to like take a matchbook or something and put it between the RCAs of older models to get it to work. Like put some pressure on it. It's like that's ridiculous. This is crazy.
Dope inclusion like that. So I feel like those are the kind of things that you all have done that just kind of those are those things you kind of paying attention to the practical use of it and bringing it up to spec.
So one thing I heard online is that you know, a certain amount of people think you guys are going to charge for firmware updates. That means, you know, added effects. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. You know, but from your perspective, if you could speak on that.
Or Roland Cloud, you know, aspect of that as well.
Yeah, I think that would tie in for sure.
Firmware effects will never be a charge from us. That's, you know, we do firmware to like better the value of your purchase.
Exactly.
If anything, we have a subscription service with, you know, great software, and now we have a burgeoning sample content library that has a lot of interesting samples more geared for beat makers. That's something that you could, you know, purchase and buy, but firmware is not going to be something that we ever put for sale. So no worries there.
Hey, let me ask you, what was something that you did on this product that excited you, that you personally are like, I'm really glad that we got to put this in the product?
Man, I mean, this is a sampler, but people talk about the effects, I think, more than the sampling experience. And in some ways, I wonder if this is like more of an effect box than a sampler for most customers. So
I think that's what's dope about it. It's kind of blurs our lines kind of a little bit.
Yeah. Well, especially now with the new version, you know, I think the previous versions, people either were like on the effects box side or, you know, beat making side. You know, I was personally on the effects box side, just because of the sequencer, just the you know, the old version, the sequencer, you couldn't resample it. You know, I think 4 pads monophonic was the most you could play in that sequencer, if I'm not wrong. 2 stereo pads, which is crazy. Like, can you make a beat with 2 stereo pads? I don't think so. I mean, so
people
I mean,
can
now
find a way though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yo, the SP404 community are kings of creative.
That's true.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you know, you have people like Liam Lizzie was a guy that I met in Atlanta and consistently talked to. He's a great 404 artist, but he makes music on an MPC, but then he has a whole chain of 404s or SPs after that to kind of get a specific sound and a vibe. And like the SP403 is like the final thing just for like one effect. And like, that's amazing to me. So the effect portion of this project was like the most important for me. We had a fantastic time looking at the current library. What do we change? What do we keep the same? What do we make from scratch? I was lucky enough to like pitch a couple of effect ideas, and even go so far as to like designing them and prototyping them and working with the DSP guys to realize it. That was fantastic. The cassette simulator was the main thing that I was working on, and that was a big project because like it's really complicated on the programming side.
Man, nice.
But But yeah,
that was actually a standout feature when I saw the initial sort of announcements and stuff. That's a standout feature, that cassette effect. It's pretty dope.
It's kind of
That
wild.
and the lo-fi, yeah.
Yeah.
Another quick question: the subsonic effect. I noticed you guys don't have that in there. Do you guys plan on adding that at some point? Is that going to come back, do you think? I know I saw a couple people like, oh man, they took this out. So just wondering on that.
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny that,
Okay.
that we will ever add this.
I got you.
Effect.
I got you. Wink, wink. Okay.
But if there's enough demand for it, that's people making themselves heard with like helpful suggestions and things. That's always welcome, especially when it comes to effects, because that's what this product does great, and that's what our engineers also are really skilled at doing, is making these dope effects. So,
is there a specific reason why they took that one out? I think that's the only one that's missing from the SX, if I'm not mistaken. The subsonic. Yeah. See. Yeah.
I don't really know if there's a particular reason beyond just refreshing the catalog and figuring out what we wanted to do and more effect types that people and SP customers would find interesting. I don't think there was like really a set like rationale as to remove it beyond just like restructuring what the effect library is.
I got a question for you as it pertains to Roland Cloud. I saw that good friend of the show, Ski Beats, has a pack up on Roland Cloud now, which is great to see. Will we be seeing more beat packs for the 404 and that sort of expansion content specifically for the 404?
Yeah, well, we're going to be releasing a consistent stream of sample packs that are geared towards this format. They're broken up into like sets of 16 samples, just like the preset content. They're going to be really easy to load into your SP. They're audio, so you can use them with whatever hardware you have. It's not necessarily just an SP, but that's kind of the vibe that we're going for. I want to push for a little bit more like it's good to have kind of this like all-encompassing drums, samples, chops, all that type of thing, but I'd like to see more specialized packs in the future. We could do something that's like, I don't know, Middle Eastern instruments or like more localized content. I think that stuff is really fun to sample. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're growing that aspect of the Roland Cloud business for sure.
Well, let me ask then, what's the process for external third party people to get involved on that? I'm asking for myself, being completely.
I'm thinking that
if I want to provide sample packs for this, I need to know what's up.
Yeah,
so it's basically just a project file, right? It's pretty much what you're getting, I would assume.
You'll get WAV files. And like that, I think the specific delivery mechanism is still being fleshed out, but you get WAV files with the sample pack.
Does a project include samples, patterns, all that stuff?
Not pattern data. It's just sample data.
Just sample data. Okay.
Yep.
Let him answer the question.
to answer Flux's question, I'm sure you guys are aware of this. The whole process of the sample pack thing has been really interesting and challenging because of like artists that like I love the music of might not make the best sample pack creators. Because
Amen.
You kind of need to be an engineer to do this correctly. So it's been a really interesting process to kind of like talk to people and like kind of get a feel for what their setup is, and then discover new folks and things like that. So I think like in the future we'd like to do artist specific packs for sure, but as far as like finding more people that are in that space of like basically generating their own content, they have the gear to do it, they have the right recording path to make like top level sound quality. Just like shoot me an email, I guess.
Well, that'll have to happen. I want to have the unit in my hands and work with it for a bit first.
For sure.
No doubt.
But hey, let me just add on to that real quick. With the 404, you guys also have what is it? The 303, 505, 707. Like the MC series. How do you see the MC series and the SP series kind of cross pollinating it all? Like, do you see any cross chatter between those products, because they all seem very kind of forward thinking, and it seems like the new generation of Roland in a way. So Do you see like some parity there, like the effects of the 404 kind of crossing over with that and vice versa?
From the effects standpoint, that's something that's very doable on our end. We have the ability to kind of, you know, not necessarily share effects directly, but the process of porting effects is very easy, specifically to effects. And the MCs are like really deep machines, so
Yeah, for sure.
they have their own really in-depth system. And I'm sure if you've used an MC707 and have tried to like go into the sound edit and then go further into the sound edit, and then you're kind of looking at, I don't know, like the direct mainframe of something, it's like kind of wild. But in the future, I could see that there being some cross pollination, whether it's in some effect sharing or into some similar like features influenced by the SP, maybe. Again, I can't really comment for sure because we haven't really thought about that. But yeah, I'd say like there's a good possibility.
So, you know, one of the things too is that you all you put what is it, the SP303 vinyl sim in there in the 404. So it's cool you have both. You have the 404 vinyl sim and the SP303 vinyl sim, which I think is dope too, because I do know people that have, you know, the different flavors of SPs, like you said, after their MPC or whatever it is, just to kind of get those nuances of the effects that are a little different. Um, and those boxes, just like anything else, started to become more expensive on the aftermarket. Was that like kind of part of the thought, like, yo, let's sprinkle a little bit of the the 303 effects in there just to kind of give them a well-rounded sort of
Right.
this is bigger than just any one sort of model machine.
I mean, that's kind of one of the top customer requests even before we started designing this was bring back the 303 vinyl sim. So we couldn't not do it. I think there would be a riot if we came out with a new SP and didn't include 303 vinyl sim. So now you get everything. I mean, for the most part, you get 303, 404 vinyl sim. There's a 404 compressor on there, but
Nice. One
yeah.
of the things I wanted to say to the people in the comments, I'm gonna try to get your questions up here, but just know that, you know, if it's stuff about what's coming in the future, I don't know how much Peter would be able to dive into that stuff, but I'll leave it to him to answer, not answer, or
Yeah.
do the dance accordingly. But just so you know,
Yeah.
that's well, we'll get those questions asked. One of the questions that was just up here was from D Still. He's one of our co-hosts that's a little busy today, like I said, saving the world. But he mentioned like, hey, would Roland ever consider doing an actual effects box like the 404, but just with no sequencer?
That's a good question.
Next, next question.
So the one that I have on the screen, the one that I have on the screen here about the customization, I think that is super dope because for so many years, like people, you can go to what is it, Style Flip or something like that. You can go to Style Flip and choose a machine, and then you could get your whatever image you throw up there to put you get like a sticker, a whole sticker that you can come and put over whatever the machine is you chose. So it's interesting that you all kind of baked that in to the SP404 MKII. How's that kind of happen? How'd that come about?
Well, that's the SB scene and community is filled with people that totally trick out their SPs and kind of reflect their personality or their artistic interest or something like that. Like they're people that have like beautiful SPs, and then you see it in artwork too. People make this like fantastic art using the kind of SP image. So clearly, art is a really big interest to this customer, this community. We wanted to maintain like an easy ability to take the faceplate off, totally trick it out, put it back on. There's also some schematics on our website for you to kind of go and check out and kind of create your own faceplate or own faceplate kind of design. The firmware stuff or the firmware based like screensaver startup logo. It was kind of, I think it was my idea, or maybe it was Shirato. Maybe it was like a birth between me and Shirato, but that was something that kind of like really ingrained that to the product. And the katakana too, the Japanese kind of Roland that says Roland. That was kind of from the amount of Japanese artwork that the community had been kind of focusing on for years, and it's kind of an homage to that interest a little bit. But all of that can be changed. You can make your own really weird logos. I had one image of like this really weird dog because I'm not an artist. I had a weird dog that I drew as my startup thing. I tried to get that in the product video for Roland, and they're like, "Can you take that out like now?"
Yo, that was one question I wanted to ask you too. How easy is it to get those like custom logos on that display screen at startup? Like, if I wanted it to say, Bryce or whatever, how difficult is that to do that? What does that entail?
Well, he's actually got it up right now on the screen share. It's on that website, so it'll walk you through step by step, what to export that file as. It needs to be a BMP file. So if you have a program that exports a BMP file, yep, there it is. Okay. It needs to be a certain dimension, and then you import it from your SD card. So it's not something that you could do over USB. I think that's just the nature of that, where that feature lives on the unit needs to be accessed with an SD card. I think it's that part's beyond my depth as to why you need an SD card, but that's essentially the process. Is you load the images onto an SD and then you import it like you're importing a project.
Gotcha.
I can't wait to get mine. I'm excited.
Yo, one more quick question. Scales in chromatic mode. Do you see that as being something possible?
I think if the demand is strong for that, that's something that we could consider.
Okay. Gotcha.
Hey Corey, what was that you brought up from Fest about the DJ mode?
Oh yeah, let's put that up there.
Because I do want to know a lot more about DJ mode. That's one thing that I haven't looked too deeply into, but I would love to hear more about DJ mode and what the concept behind that is.
Yeah, that's a great question. The DJ mode was something that Shirado, my coworker, pioneered, and he's a DJ out in Japan and works with this local record label. It's Hamamatsu-based record label called, I think, Interspecies Records. And they do shows, when there's not a pandemic and everybody's quarantined. They normally do shows at like kind of local sound bars, and their music is awesome. And he really wanted to kind of address 404 customers that wanted to DJ with it. And that's a whole puzzle in my head as to how does that work in this format? How does DJing work? There's no faders, there's no crossfader. But he created this really good system where you can kind of load in your full tracks, and then I don't know if you could tell on the images of the 404, but on the buttons, there are DJ controls now. Things like BPM, queuing, restart, sync. It reflects what a normal DJ controller would look like. So you basically can get a 2-channel DJ mode with the Mark II and use the control knobs to basically mimic what the faders would do on a 2-channel. And it's a lot of fun. I'm not a DJ, so I had to rely on him to kind of like pioneer that and push that forward, and then also kind of rely on our internal DJ employees to tell us if it was fun or not. So, yeah.
So I got another question. The vinyl pitch effect, it seems to be in percentage. Is there a way to make that semitones? I know there's a separate, I think, chromatic mode that does semitones. I don't know if those are specifically different, but the vinyl, I know some people are asking about a semitone adjustment there rather than a percentage.
That's a good question. The vinyl mode is in percentage. There's not a current way to use vinyl with semitone display. But if you change it, if you turn vinyl mode off, you do get the individual pitch and speed, and that's reflected in semitones. So you could kind of mimic it if you wanted to, just by changing both the speed and the pitch, as if you were kind of in vinyl mode.
Gotcha. So it's the same thing. It's going to have the same sound, pretty much, is what you're saying.
It's going to have like mostly the same sound. It's going to be dependent on the user. If their like speed is a little bit off from what the original would be, then you will get a little bit of time stretching. So you just kind of have to, I guess, use your ears to kind of dial that in. I mean, that's a good idea though. the vinyl mode pitch shifting
in
display.
semitones. Yeah.
I think another dope thing that you all did is there was always a SP404 app, right? I feel like I've used something, and I don't remember if it was actually branded the 404 app, but that's how I would load like full songs to pads and then, play those songs, just trigger them like launching a audio clip or whatever. So now you have the new app. And does that bring any new functionality to, or is it more of an advanced app?
It's way more advanced than the SX app. The wave converter was like super basic, and there was no kind of like very limited librarian functionality to it.
Yep.
This is something that's way more like, it makes sense. You just click and drag samples you want on the 404 into whatever pad you want. You can also do things like import standard MIDI files. If you have a beat that you made in Ableton and you wanted to bring it into your 404 pattern sequencer, you could do that.
Wow.
There's a lot of stuff with the app, and basically all the sample settings are available too. So if you want to use them in conjunction, like before this podcast, I had just put in a couple of like sounds and samples, and I used the app to kind of dial in the levels and make sure everything was copacetic. But
and on that app too, you can manipulate the samples and everything from there, right?
Yeah, you can adjust the start and end point. If you wanted a bigger display, you could do that. My preference is to use it just moving samples around. Like that's just it's such a simple thing, but it's such a quality of life improvement.
Dope. And then are there any plans, like Chill Will's asking, are there any plans for iOS companion eventually, ported from the desktop version?
That is a great question, and something that we can consider.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll say that me personally, like I feel like probably one of the main workflows that I envision with this thing is more taking it out of the studio and working with it away from the masses amount of gear and whatnot. I can see it working with the modular in a really nice way. Do you use yours with your modular often? I see you have one back there. And what kind of workflows do you particularly find enjoyable with it?
Oh, man. I wonder if is it like wired in right now?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, dude.
About to make some mod bat.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yo, he answered your question in the best possible way that
That's what I want to see.
He's like, oh, I don't know, Ken. Let's see.
Let's see.
No, this can also be a tape deck to just record ideas. So in some ways, like this has replaced my Zoom H4n, which I used to have like next to my modular at all times.
I keep mine by mine.
Yeah, exactly. It's super useful, but this makes it applicable to like music making. I can like sample something, then immediately start working with an idea.
Nice.
And I don't have to like transfer from the Zoom to my computer and then do the editing and then bring it back into a sampler. That just doesn't make sense. So as just like a kind of a tape deck that you can then seamlessly transition to a sampler. That's great. I would say it's like that for that, and then also for just effects too. I've been trying to use this as like a in between effects box from my modular into my TR-8S. Just trying to use it in different scenarios. I mean, everybody's got their own specific way they like to use this thing. So
absolutely.
So quick question. What does DAW export look like? So if I wanted to get everything I'm working on in my project over to my DAW, I imagine connected USB, it shows up as a drive on my computer. Is that and just drag stuff in, or is there anything more to that?
You can do it straight from the app. If it's rendered as audio.
Oh, cool.
That's the thing. Like if you'd have to kind of like, if it's a pattern, you need to record it somehow,
right,
whether it's going into your DAW manually. This is class compliant, so you can literally use anything. But if it's audio, it'll just show up in the app, and then you just click and drag it out or export it, and then you have it.
Yeah. So you could resample your master output and then essentially drag that over if you really wanted.
Yep.
Oh, that's
what's the maximum sample time that you can do these sorts of things with? Is it divided?
16 minutes.
It's 16 minutes. Yep. Yeah, Bryce is right.
And that can be divided in any which way, or
Oh, it's 16 minutes of just like one sample pad, one recording.
yeah,
Seamless recording could be up to 16 minutes, and then you
gotcha.
can just keep doing that until the hard drive runs out. You know.
Awesome.
That is super awesome, actually.
Yeah,
Them
that's
16
one
minute
thing
samples.
that's like the old ones. I mean, on paper they have that SD card streaming capability, and so that leads to you can use it. You can basically have like I think was it hours or something of sampling. I don't know. There's some sort of metric that has a lot of sample memory for the old models, but you're not really able to do that with the eMMC memory that's in it because the eMMC it's just wired differently. It's way faster on this, but that's the only thing it sacrifices is it doesn't have like almost infinite amount of sample time. But would you want that though? Like the practicality of that experience? I'm not really sure what that is.
Yeah.
Beyond 16 minutes, like that's a long time.
So that's one of those things, though, right? Like that's one of those things like scope creep and feature creep. When you start, like, yeah, just because we can do it, is it practical for this piece that we're working on? This I thought was a good question. Somebody mentioned that the older 404 is 44.1 sample rate, while the new one is 48. And will there be any sort of discrepancies loading old sessions into the new MK2? Do we know that?
The app will convert old projects from the SX into this format. So it's going to sound basically the same. And excuse me, it converts it. I mean, you're kind of upsampling, but once it's been 44.1, so you're not getting anything new. You know what I mean? When you upsample to 48, but it does convert it seamlessly through the app.
Dope. So, I just do this thing up here where somebody, they said 1 and 2, but I like that they said, Bryce, is you on your job or what? You've been on Reddit acting like you're on Reddit.
I'm trying. There's so many questions, man. There's so many questions on Reddit. I'm like, man, I don't want to bombard. I don't want to just go crazy.
I do.
You know what I mean?
I want to bombard.
I don't want to bombard Peter, man.
I'm so happy to be on the other side of this, asking him questions.
So, all right. Let's do it then. Let's do it. Okay. So real quick. Okay. So I got one here that I was actually wondering, recordable pad mutes or, pad mutes in the sequencer. Is that something that you could see happening?
What's something we can consider?
Okay, yeah,
my answers are going to be pretty limited.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I mean, like, I feel like people have to verbalize these, desires that they have to roll in.
Well, I got a question.
How would they do that though? How would they like get that information to you guys to let them know, hey, this is something?
Yeah, what's the best route to give you this information in a way that isn't like just filing in that circle filing cabinet on the floor?
I mean, we have a lot of avenues now that we have like Facebook and internet forums and different mechanisms to kind of list ideas, but also list ideas together. Facebook groups work really well, just in general, even though I hate Facebook, but the forum aspect and the group aspect, they have good mechanics to do polls and do things like ways to show collective interest in something, and that's makes our job easier too, because we can just point to one thing and say, hey, there's like 500 people that want recordable mutes on the sequencer.
Right
that type of thing.
Does the class compliant aspect allow you to have more inputs or no? Is it still just 2 inputs or what?
Audio in,
like when you're bringing audio in. So like if I plug into an interface that has maybe 4 to 6 inputs, can I possibly be deciding
streaming
what I'm
all that
getting
in
from?
I think so.
That's a good question, actually.
I think so.
Okay,
I would think so.
I haven't pulled up the manual yet, so that this is something that maybe is possibly covered in the manual. I don't know.
It's 2 in, but 4 out for some.
For like a queue out or something?
For the queue out, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I
Okay.
think that's what you're getting with the class compliance stuff.
I'm just thinking in terms of like, well, if I can do 16-minute sample, like if I have that much sample time, I'm like, man, that opens up the avenue for like a lot of things, like recording a live set to it and that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So Bryce, I'm gonna I'm gonna have you when you get your MK2. I feel like this question is the perfect one for you to be first to try out, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I don't
Yeah.
think we have heard much about the guitar amp simulators, and
Yeah.
that's a dope inclusion.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. It's on the inputs only,
Mhm.
and that's another thing I was wondering. Do you anticipate a lot of people wanting those input only effects added to the internal effects? Is that something you guys have thought about? 'Cause I know-
Or why it's only input only and not allowable on the others.
Well, those effects are really geared towards performers, and when we look at people like I think one of the women that's on our marketing kind of slideshow things, Abel tries her best. She's a singer and she routes her voice straight into this, and that requires, like, we want to make effects that are tailored towards people that are using it for a mic, that are singing, but also for guitarists. This one guy that I talked to on Instagram a bunch, I think his name is Metric something. He uses a guitar, plays this amazing stuff straight through an old 404 SX. So I thought like we could probably improve this scenario as well. So they're really meant for just like input effects. Hypothetically, if you had a dry guitar as a sample pad, then you would probably be wanting
That's
those
kind of
input
my
effects.
thought process. That and also like crunching up drums. I love sending drums through guitar amps.
Yeah. I mean, we
Okay,
got a lot
so-
of crunchy stuff in there already.
Another
Yeah,
another
sure.
There's a lot of crunch, man.
another question, real quick. So
Never
I have
enough crunch.
I have an MPD 218 here, to play MIDI notes and stuff like that. Can the SP404 Mark II basically replace that? Would it be able to send, note values to Ableton if I wanted to get rid of that? Is it basically a 16 note or 17 note? Can it replace this? Is
Yeah.
the MIDI aspects of it?
Absolutely.
And do the
Yeah, you
knobs
can-
send CC values?
The pads currently send note data on different. Each bank is a different MIDI channel.
Okay.
So that's super useful. The note data sends, and the knob CC data, I don't think it's currently implemented. There's no
Okay.
MIDI connection with the knobs, not at this moment.
Okay, so knobs don't function with CC at all right now.
Correct.
Okay.
So we got a couple of questions in the chat about shipping dates and when things are going to arrive, and that's probably one of those inevitable sort of questions. So I know pre-orders are available now. Do we have an idea of when the device is going to ship? And I'm not trying to back you into a corner because I know that stuff can get sticky, but if you have any idea, they probably want you to share. It's come up like at least 11 million times in the
Yeah, no, well, I can say we're hoping that they arrive most places by the end of November. There's a lot of
Nice,
stuff going on in the supply
nice.
chain, not just in music, but in all sorts of industries that
Yep.
might throw some wrenches in there. But that's our goal, or at least our ideal is end of November. That's what's currently kind of in our schedule. If everything goes without incident, hopefully a barge doesn't get stuck in the Suez Canal again.
or
Yeah,
Or it can just be offloaded at this point, because I mean that seems to be the biggest issue right now, is just getting ships offloaded. you
yeah,
know?
because
Yeah.
Just sitting in port.
We'll just be
Yeah, and
here.
I don't know if you saw that, Peter. There's a guy on Reddit that actually in Canada, he already got his unit like yesterday. So in Canada's
He's one
already
of the
getting
lucky
units.
ones, man.
Yeah,
that's
yep. Yeah,
It hit
so,
Canada first, I'm pretty sure. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure just through, whatever the shipping logistics, Canada was the first.
was the first. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. One guy asks here, possibility to layer more, instead of just 2 layers, multiple layers up to 16, which I mean, I think that's kind of crazy, but so you could speak to that. Adding
Yeah.
more layers, is that a possibility?
You could do that. We have pad link. Well, let's
How
see
many
for a
pads
second.
can you link?
So if we go to pad link, you can link in different groups. So groups A through J. So if I select A and then I want to link, I can go up to 4. Okay, so anything beyond that, you'd want to resample,
right?
And then you can kind of compress it down that way.
Got it. Okay.
That's useful for the skip back too. Like you could actually do it pretty quickly if you just use skip back.
Use the skip back, yeah. That skip back feature is incredible.
Yep.
That's crazy. That was a kind of later idea that we had towards the end of this, like, the first round of development. Skip back then got brought up, and Sherrado and I were freaking out at the idea, and then he was able to implement it in a really kind of novel and convenient way, and it turns out to be like one of the main things that people talked about was this like kind of time machine for your music.
It is kind of dope. I mean, just for
it's kind of like a callback to the Phantom, and some other Roland products from back in the day could do that, and it was it's nice to see that return.
Yeah, it's. On the Phantom, it wasn't really like. I don't think it was like sexy on the Phantom, but it was cool, and then it kind of went away. But for beat makers, this is awesome because you could just do something really cool, and then if you're not recording, it's gone. But with skip back, it's like, oh,
yeah,
no worries.
So there's been a lot of times that probably a lot of people are like this when I'm messing around on the pads and that was a dope sort of way to arrange that chop or play that melody, and then you got to remember how you played it. And it may only take a few more seconds or another minute or two, but if you just hit the skip back, now you got it already.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna just say skip back for me, it's useful for the capturing a musical idea, but it totally replaces resampling different sounds with different effects. So I could just put reverb on a snare, play it. It's already been recorded. I don't need to hit resample and do that whole thing. It doesn't make resampling redundant, though. Resampling has its own set of tools, like a metronome now you can use while resampling. I heard stories of people that recorded a metronome from their phone onto a pad on the old 404 just to have one for their resampling flow.
See, I'm saying 404 kids, they like breathe with the workarounds.
Yeah.
Those are the types of people that we're building this for, man.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Another question real quick. There doesn't seem to be a way to sidechain. Do you guys plan on doing anything like sidechain with the bus effects and stuff like that?
I mean, that's a great idea. I mean, it's kind of like that weird balance of, people achieved sidechain through over compression, and that's what makes the sound good on so many SP things. So do we want to interfere with that? I'm not, I'm a little bit conservative when it comes to like that type of decision, but
that's like a classic workflow kind of thing.
It's a classic workflow. Like that's the sound is you just compress everything and then you put the kick really high and then it just sidechains itself. We do have envelopes on this though. So you could have basically a faux sidechain if you were really looking for something deliberate. You can use the envelope to kind of shape the things that you want sidechained and do kind of a mock sidechain thing. I promise nobody will tell the difference if you're listening to it in a club. I promise.
That's also kind of one of those things too, like with the sidechain. If that's the way the sidechain is done, it's kind of like one of those stripes of being a user. You come to know that trick. You know what I'm saying? And you're really a part of the SP404 gang at that point. Here's another question. Will you be able to chop more than 16 chops to one bank? You got 16 pads.
Oh, you're muted.
You just went muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. You have 16 pads already. So the question is, you want to chop more than 16? Like, how does that work? Like I don't know. Change the bank really quick and then you do that?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's an
interesting idea.
Maybe saving the first 16 to one bank and then if you do 32, the second 16 to.
Oh, it just takes the banks available kind of deal. Okay, I can see that being.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly something to consider, and we have mechanisms to test some of these things, but if it's not fun or if it doesn't feel good, it's going to work in it.
Or if it takes
at
you
a disadvantage.
Where you're all of a sudden doing all these extra steps to achieve.
Right.
Getting back to a little bit about what the unit actually is, as opposed to what it might be later on. Because I still feel like there's so much there, like right now, that we should probably talk about. Yeah. So
Well, hold on, Dylan. You know what's funny is I think I was watching a DiBiase thing, and he has DB flips, like his little episode, episodes that he's doing, and somebody in the comments was like, "Yo, you know what would be interesting is the OP2. That'll be interesting if they're working on it." And I was just thinking, like, so what's interesting about it if we don't even know if they're working on it? I don't know.
Well, it's easy. It's easy to talk about what we want, but what I want to know is like what's in there right now that makes you go, wow. You know what I mean? Like what's in there right now that like you're like, yeah, you know what? People are gonna use this in a certain way, and then a new workflow is gonna evolve from this aspect of this new feature that we have in here. You know, with the DJ mode and with everything else, I just keep looking at it like, man, there's a lot to explore for what there is right now. Let me ask you about the development though, and some of the scary parts of development. When this was getting close to shipment date, right? How much nail biting was there at towards the end, or was the development for 1.0 like really already locked in place for a good minute? Because I know that some products that can be like really up to the final moments, you know, and sometimes even beyond with, you know, you need to have that day one update and that sort of thing. And, you know, can you talk a little bit about the development cycle as far as timeline and that sort of thing?
Yes. We were pretty confident about it going into the we call PIDD date, the, you know, announcement day. Shirato ran his team like clockwork, so we had most of the things that we wanted kind of like really early in, or maybe just a handful of things for like a day one update type of thing. But for the most part, we were confident with the firmware and like the product itself. Most of the nail biting comes in through like marketing and like seeing videos come in and they're saying the wrong thing, or they're, you know, got the specs wrong, and then we freak out because like, you know, 300,000 people are going to think it has like 10 seconds to skip back, and beside it not 25. And it's like, it's a big deal because it's like, you know, that stuff's going to reach people, and you want people to know what the info is. Right. And as much as interesting as I might be, people will probably prefer to watch like, you know, professional YouTubers that are like, you know, have the personality to kind of captivate people. So that's kind of where the nail biting comes in, is making sure everybody's like saying the right thing and leaking.
Well, yeah. So this did get leaked. Can you talk a little bit about that? About how there was a leak before official announcement?
That was pretty much like an accident, I would assume.
Speaking conservatively, because I don't know how much of this I can talk about. I mean, it happened. So like there's actually 2 leaks. The first one didn't catch. No, sorry, there were 3 leaks.
Wow.
The first one didn't catch. The second one didn't catch either.
The Sam Ash one was the one.
And then the Sam Ash one was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to bypass a Sam Ash posting.
But the
by the way, I don't know if you realize it, Peter, but you just mentioned the name of me and Bryce and Ken's new group called 3 Leaks. So proceed.
No. I honor my NDAs. Don't put me in that group.
I'm just kidding. That's
man.
I don't want no parts of that.
We don't. Actually, you know what? When we see leaks, because I mean, I think people that watch Beat People Podcast know that we on this podcast are really good friends. It's not just like some stuff we do together, like right. Yeah. We are really good friends, and we talk pretty much daily. I think if a day goes by and one of us doesn't say anything, it's probably gonna be like, "Yo, dude,
is he all right? Where's Steele at? What's he doing?"
We tend to talk about like when leaks happen. We like damn. Why'd they do that? Now there will be some times like, well, that's interesting, but at the same time, from a perspective of what we do, we're always like, yo, that's like the ultimate foul. You know what I mean?
It's I mean, from a business perspective, and I don't know if this makes me seem like the man a little bit, but it is damaging when a leak happens, because there's a lot of effort and investment into announcing something in a very specific way. And depending on the type of leak is more destructive than others.
Mm.
The Sam Ash, I mean, the silver lining is that they like had everything on there. They were like, here's everything about this product. So far as people thought it was like a hoax or a
They
fake.
did.
Like
Yeah, I saw that. I saw a lot of people like, oh,
Sam Ash in like a new 404. Which maybe that's a good sign if they think it's too good to be true. That's,
Yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah.
felt like that's kind of what people were thinking. Like, there's no way that it's like that.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways it kind of got people's juices flowing. They were like, man, is this real? Like, you know, and the wheels got turning. I know it was about 2 weeks before you guys announced that leaked happened.
It was
So
a weird 2 weeks for sure. Some guy was like, that photo's completely Photoshop, and he lists like,
all the
can see
reasons
this
why.
weird blurring right here, and the lighting's not realistic, and like, oh, like he's got
He's
circles.
blowing it up and circling stuff in red. Like, look, that's totally.
It is one of those things where it's like it can feel kind of painful just because it's like you work so hard to be like, listen, everybody keep to yourselves, like don't share this, don't share. And I know for a fact that like certain artists had this thing for 5-6 months ahead of time and didn't leak. So which is great because it's like a lot of the times it'll be you get it out to artists to get some help, and then one artist is a little bit looser than another, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh well, I heard from a guy who happens to know a guy who, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's, you know, and usually those things are pretty not that big of a deal on a forum as much. But the fact that it stayed this quiet for this long for that big of a product was still pretty awesome because it was only like a week or two.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Well, let me ask though, did that kind of accelerate the release date? Like, because I feel like sometimes these leaks happen and then people are like, well, yo, it's gotten out of hand. Let's go. We're good at this point. Let's just go.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Well, we kept everything the same. We're not that fast, but there was some kind of concepts that we were pitching, like, okay, how do we do this? But in some ways, like sometimes silence is like the best method, and then you kind of like do what it is that you originally planned to do. People are paying attention at that point. So we kept kind of basically our original plan for the most part.
Go.
Can you speak a little bit on like custom faceplates? Like, how do you guys see that? Like, are you guys going to do stuff from Roland, or you know, is that third party stuff basically mostly, or?
That's a delicate thing because I don't want to like encroach on third party people doing novel and interesting 404 faceplate stuff. You know, we also would require some sort of like how many sales do we expect from a custom faceplate? Unless we're doing a kind of a special marketing thing. So I can imagine us doing like, hey, for KnobCon, there's 10 faceplates here that we got made locally from a local artist, or if there's like some kind of cool contest, that's kind of how I see us doing it, is more from a marketing thing, like as prizes or something like that. I don't know if we would...
I think what would be really dope is that there are some users of the 404 that are so prolific and so synonymous with the use of the 404. It would be dope to be able to lift those guys up.
No joke.
With
no joke.
Special edition.
Super dope.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is just really dope, and it really shows because you all are already entrenched in the community, and I don't have to name who those folks would be because you already know. You know what I'm saying? We mentioned several of them on the show here today, but that kind of stuff I think would be super dope.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've been like, I can't say anything now, but we've started some conversations around something like this.
Dope.
That I'm hoping continue, and we're able to do something.
Dope.
It would be really dope. Go ahead.
Did you have anything else from Reddit real quick? I'm just being careful because I don't want Reddit to come after me.
I know.
Saying,
I mean,
Ken talked and that should have been my Reddit question.
Man, okay, so let me go ahead. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Well, let's kind of dial back to the build quality for a second, because I haven't had it in my hands, and you know I don't want to get it and then cry, because I do have a JDXA, and you know I cry sometimes when I touch it, but it has some awesome effects in it. So let's talk about the build quality on it, man. What is the housing made of? Is it a metal housing, and then talk to us about the knob selection and all that good stuff, like the
Okay.
actual build choices that went into it.
That was super interesting because I got to look at all these metal treatments one day, just saying, oh, this is brushed and this is stippled and this is like this other process. We went back and forth with the design on this. We were looking at some crazy futuristic looking things like white in like a sphere, kind of like something that looks from like that movie. I don't know, Oblivion with Tom Cruise. Is that what it's called? What's that Tom Cruise movie? Anyway, but we settled on something that was like kind of both classic and futuristic. It's got the metal top. It's got beefier knobs because we saw plenty of people tricking out their SXs and their own SPs with thicker knobs. So that gave us a good indication as to like, okay, people probably want something that's a little bit more substantial. The value knob is probably one of the more interesting and kind of different approaches to a 404. This feels great. It's notched, so it's really easy to edit stuff precisely, and it's a push encoder as well. The bottom part is like hardened plastic, and when you put the batteries in it, it feels like really, really solid. When the batteries are out, it's a little bit lighter than the original 404. And aside from that, sorry, I got it like all kind of dialed in here, but it's got a Kensington lock. And it's got MIDI in and out as well.
You gotta have that.
So,
The Kensington lock.
it's got that Kensington lock, man.
That's right. Like an office desk. That's the best way to be.
But yeah, I think it's got a great build. I'm really happy that we were able to get everything together for a price point that was like nice for folks. I don't think anybody was expecting it to be the price that it's set to.
Yeah, but all that you all included at that price point is kind of impressive. I mean, not even kind of impressive. It's pretty damn impressive. It almost makes it a no-brainer. You know what I mean? One of the first things I said to the crew when we talked about it was like, yo, with this thing, that thing, this thing, all these features that we were kind of rattling off, and then it's at $500. I said, listen, if you are a person that ever used an SP in your setup or ever liked an SP or even ever thought one day I'll get an SP, like that makes it a no-brainer. With all this feature set and then $500, like that kind of makes it a no-brainer almost.
People were estimating when we did have those kind of early interviews between like $600 and $1,000, and that was surprising and probably a good sign to kind of like to have. It's not the opposite. We've had the opposite for some products, and people that are like, "Oh, is this like $500?" And it's like, no, it's way more than that. But this was one of the priorities, was to make it affordable for most people so that they could easily purchase it. It's like in the realm of possibility for a lot of folks. And I'm sure the used market for SPs it's going to do some crazy thing. So it'll be easy to finance one.
Hey, I do have a question about, so Chris had brought up the question about how did you come to the TRS MIDI solution, but I have a little bit further to go on that one. What I read was that it does not include the adapters with it when you buy it, right? The TRS MIDI adapters. What standard does it use, and how are you providing them? And can you possibly switch between standards? Because I know that the finalized MIDI standard is not what Arturia did, but Arturia is like the vast majority of the adapters that I have. So,
right. Yeah, we use Type A. They're calling it Type A. It's whatever that the MIDI Association website has for this format, and that's what we do. I believe it's what other
I want to say Make Noise,
maybe
and who else did that one? I forget who else it is.
Maybe
but
Polly Bebo as well, I think, did Type A.
Yeah. It's definitely a bunch of people, but I know there's that discrepancy, and we need to all get on the same page, people. If you're listening,
I agree.
Please use Type A.
I thoroughly agree. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of those adapters that are already out there that are, quote, incorrect. So now, they weren't incorrect at the time because there just wasn't a standard. But so there's no like firmware to like switch which version you're using or anything like that in there. Like there's no option.
Right. No, I mean, there's no current option, and I don't even know if that's possible. That's something I'd have to ask Shirato and the folks in Japan. But Boss makes the correct adapter. So if you were looking for a Roland solution, you could go to the Boss's adapter and use that. The reasoning behind it purely is space, because we went for 1/4 inch. And we wanted to use a USB as well. That back panel is quite full.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to just have MIDI in was the original, I think, right? The SX only had like one MIDI port, MIDI in port.
Yep.
We wanted to have both because this is what a modern product needs.
Shoot, I just got sidetracked reading the chat.
I just wanted to reiterate a couple people that's asked this question, just that fixed length recording. So just to like kind of reiterate what that is, it's just being able to set a specific bar length when you resample or when you record in, just having that capture that specific bar length according to the project tempo. So just wanted to kind of reiterate that.
If PC heads out there, they'll probably recognize it. I mean, I think that has, but like the looper on the MPC and the Force kind of have, you could set a bar, just 2 bars, and then when you hit sample, it'll only sample 2 bars of it. And it'll be quantized too in most cases, where it'll start at the beginning of, whatever that count is. It won't just start anywhere. Like you could literally hit it, edit, and it'll wait for the beginning of the bar, start recording, and stop at 2 bars. And then that way you have a perfect loop without,
needing to set start and end points and all that stuff. Right. Yep. So that seems like a huge one on here on Reddit. So
definitely. No, I completely understand the idea behind it, and that's something that I could see being feasible for something like this.
Nice.
What sort of MIDI are you guys doing with those ports on there? And I assume you can also take in MIDI over the USB as well.
Right, we do. You can do MIDI over USB, and so you can use it as a sequencer, or it can be sequenced by something. That's essentially like the kind of that, or it's just a MIDI through if you want to incorporate it into a larger setup. The effects on here tempo sync, or a lot of them do. So that's also really useful, especially when I have like my drum machine and my modular kind of all doing tempo based stuff. I kind of need that. So that's really helpful. And that's kind of how I have it hooked up. Even if I wanted to use it SBX1 or something with my modular without the TR8S, I need a way to kind of have this dialed into the same tempo, or I'll just manually set the project tempo and just do it by ear. I've also done that, but the MIDI is really useful for that kind of like setting it up in an ensemble.
So when we were talking about those input effects, and you were talking about the guitar amp stuff, is that stuff coming directly from like the GT1000 or like coming from other like Boss products, or like where are you selecting effects from as you're pulling them into this product?
That's a good question. I kind of think the MC might have a similar guitar simulator, and I know the body of engineers, a lot of them have shared experience with Boss and at Roland, so these effects are really dependent on like the expertise of the person making it.
Sure.
So if they have that background, they're going to bring their skill and their experience to kind of do something with that. I can't say for sure if this specific effect is borrowed wholesale from a Boss product. It's really just dependent on like whoever was working on it at that time.
Sure.
So this one's kind of a no-brainer for me. The sequencer basically has overdub, right? So you could record, play your kick pattern, and then stop record and then go back in, record again and play your hi-hat pattern. It has that ability. Okay. Yeah, just to clear that up. Someone asked that on Reddit too, so.
Yeah, you can overdub. I think it was Accurate Beats I don't know if people do this, but he hard quantized like downbeats or like 1 and 3 or like 1 on every measure, and then turned off quantize for like the rest of his playing. And I was like, Oh,
Yeah, I do that.
That makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Yeah, yeah, and
Definitely done that.
depending
I'm a
on
noob, man. I'm
you
totally
can fully adjust what your quantize is at, right? Like so. Usually, what I'll do on a lot of my machines is I'll set my quantize to a really low resolution and put those hard notes in, and then you go up to a higher resolution for the sloppier or more fine
more
resolution
loose.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. We do. Yeah, we have. You can set the strength, and you can set the grid, or you can set like shuffle amount, and that can all be done while the sequencer is playing. So you don't have to stop it and then like reset it and then kind of play it again.
So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't mean to.
Oh
cut you
no,
off
it's.
there.
I mean, it's great for layering, as you said. Overdubbing. It's a super useful tool to have.
So I know the PPQN is 480 with the no quantize. The resolution's 480. What's the maximum quantize? Because I know there was a guy on Reddit kind of romanticizing the old school kind of drum machines with the 96 PPQN. So what's the maximum resolution for the quantized?
So what he's meaning is really what can you set it to? Like manually, what can you set the max? Like, can you go up to like 256 triplets and that sort of?
Right, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, I think I understand what you're saying. Like, what's the? Because we
max-
have
So like 1/64th triplet would be 96 PPQ. Wait, am I right on that? Yes. And then 960 would be 256 triplets. If yeah.
Well, the grid goes up until, let's see. You can turn the grid off, and then you can turn it to. It goes from quarter notes for triplets, 8 triplets, 16 triplets, 32, or
32?
off. And then between that, you have a percentage of 0 to 100. So that can just quantize it or nudge it to, strength essentially.
Gotcha. Okay.
I feel like Bryce is feeling that Reddit pressure.
I can see it. I can see it. He's like I'm going to get death threats.
I'm not commenting on Reddit no more.
I am. A lot of this stuff I feel like you touched on. And a lot of it is people just expressing
rewording the same question.
Yeah, and that and expressing their desire for these features. He mentioned that just being vocal about what you want. To Roland is a big part of this too. So
yeah, being vocal, just say it, like put it somewhere where we can find it. Whether that's on forums or in groups. I know Discord. We're trying to get a little bit more active on Discord. We've got a couple people, myself included, that have gone into SP Discord groups and have talked to people directly. That's really helpful. We're trying to be a little bit more kind of like transparent and organic like that. But it's also really helpful to use like something like Facebook or something like Gearspace to really kind of talk about and dialogue. And so we can see how many people are actually like invested in this type of idea. How many people is it going to help? We want to do everything, but it's kind of like,
it can be really difficult to be a company trying to track across 75 different platforms what everyone's saying, though, especially when it's a group of like maybe 3 people looking at this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we're a big company, but the teams that are like focused on products are not big. We're analogous to kind of like a more small independent developer, that might have like 12 people or something like that, and a lot of those are engineers. They're focused on engineering, and then it's basically up to me and a couple other people to do that outreach and to talk to people or kind of look at stuff. So as long as we're able to find it somewhere easily, please don't be silent. Just let us know kind of what your thoughts and feelings are on it, especially after you get it. Please wait until after you purchase it or after you've like seen a lot of info to kind of figure it out. Oh, maybe it does do this. And then
so here's one of the things I wanted to talk about is we already talked about how the sequencer has improved. And I have Marcus K says, I hear that the sequencer isn't a strong point at all. And I think that's probably more of a statement about past SP404s because maybe it's also because most people have shared how they do the resample method. And if you come from a more regimented sort of MPC background, and full disclaimer, this is my brother Marcus K. He taught me how to use an MPC. Right, that's my man Trust as well.
Dope.
So I think that there's a connotation that, you know, the sequencer isn't good. Maybe it's not everyone's like cup of tea, but if you come from a background that's like the MPC and that sort of thing, you're used to a certain like way of programming. And I think when people started getting onto the SP404, they started realizing like, oh, well, okay, we're going to do this workaround with the resample stuff, but you still have that resample vibe in there. But I feel like one of the things that you all tried to do with this is really raise the level of the sequencer so that people can kind of really feel like they have a more seasoned sort of sequence and a sequencer that has matured over time.
Yo, and let me jump in here real quick before he gets to that. The old sequencer, you couldn't resample it. So that's huge. Whatever you did in that sequencer, you could not resample to a pad and further develop whatever your idea was. Not only that, but you could only have 4 samples playing at any time. If you did any more than that, they would start to cut each other out. So, and if you get into stereo samples, you could only have 2.
Yeah, what's the polyphony on it now?
32.
Okay, yeah.
So that's huge. That's
like, plenty.
You know, so the sequencer automatically gets opened up based on that right there alone. You have 32 pads that you can, you know, or 32, you know, notes you can play. I don't know if it does it, you know, stereo, if it, you know, reduces it to 16 like the old SP, but that's plenty, you know. So just that right there alone makes the sequencer phenomenally better. Not only that, but 480 PPQ, forget it, man. You can do whatever you want, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the sequencer on an SP, what we started with was incredibly basic, and what our focus was to take all the stuff that like is convenient for people, like the quantize, the high resolution sequencing, the ability to easily kind of like crop patterns, duplicate patterns, quality of life things that are a little bit like more focused and conservative, but like make it kind of like usable in a more modern context. And that's what makes this fit this format too. I mean, there's things like, you know, I have this Phantom, it has a touch screen, and there's other sampler products that have big touch screens that can take advantage of certain verbs, certain things with a sequencer, and that's great for that product. But I think this product is maybe not so much like, not, you shouldn't look to this product as being your main sequencer by any means. This is something that's more for like generating ideas and like being more creative about using audio. And the sampler makes it more easy to do that because you can resample now. You can sequence your ideas very quickly and easily, and then immediately resample them to do some creative audio effects.
Absolutely.
And
that to me is what says like that's why you get like an SP404 versus getting an MPC versus getting a Force versus getting a Live versus getting a Machine, whatever. It's like, you know, like a lot. I feel like the tendency a lot of the times is people see products that can do some similar things, and then they try to force them to all be the same, almost like what happened with dolls, where like so many dolls just became the same thing, just organized in different ways, and you're just like, yeah, but what's the fun in that? Like give me something with a little bit of character so that I can then explore it.
And I'd also like to say, Peter, I think your answer was spot on to that, but I would beg to differ on. It's not, maybe that's not the intention of it for it to be somebody's main sequencer, but for real, I know people that only have a SP404 and get hella more busy than anybody that has $20,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah. It's
so it really depends on the user and your kind of use case, and you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And you know, verbiage is the key here because we're talking about sequencing, but this could by all means be your main like music production piece.
Absolutely.
Like, this is like the gear that you use.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think we could probably talk about this stuff all day, but we try to do as close to an hour as we can, and we have done closer to 2 hours at this point.
We got him captive.
Yeah,
Yo, I just want to say to my people on Reddit, man, you know, I did what I could. I'm sorry. You know, I did what I could. I did what I could.
Like, I feel like that look was the same look that like Magic Johnson.
That's all right. The internet doesn't appreciate people anyway. So.
Yo, Peter, I just want to say, man, shout out to you for connecting with the community and just really going in on this, man. You really did a great job on a.
Congrats, yeah, for real,
that, man.
Well, congrats, man. This is and also I want to say for Roland to still be doing a refreshed version of this device that has been around for so many years when other things would be retired and lots of things have come and gone. It's dope to see that you all said, you know what, we want to put the smackdown on the 404 now.
Man, yep, for sure.
Thanks, and congrats to the whole team that you worked with. You know, I know it's a team effort, and yeah, like I said, I mean, like I don't often plunk down cash right away when I see something. So, you know, I just say kudos to the whole team.
So just to kind of tie things up, I know. Well, is it safe to assume there are more effects coming through firmware updates? I think you kind of alluded to it in your video. You said we're launching with these effects.
It's fine, Bryce. What did you say? What was it to launch? We're starting with this. Something that almost alluded to like,
it's like, oh, there's more
we don't have this many, but you never.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Verbiage is key. We're launching with this amount of effects.
So look into the matrix, people.
There you go.
No doubt. Well,
thank you
for coming by. I want to thank everybody in the chat for being a part of the conversation, and looking forward to doing this again. And in the comments, first subscribe and like all of our stuff, all the Ken stuff, all of Upright stuff. Upright be dipping and diving on social.
Yeah, I'm off social right now. I'm just I'm on YouTube as Beats and Guitars, but I'm not on social right now. I'm taking a break.
All good, but just be sure to comment in here too about if there's any other questions or anything. I don't know, but just give Peter and them another place to be looking for stuff that people are. But go to the places where Peter recommended. Go to the forums or the Facebook group to give you feedback and all that stuff. And for the Beat People podcast, be sure to follow us on Instagram, like and subscribe to B-Boy Tech Report channel. And if there's anything that you want to see us do similar to this for other products and other stuff that's out there, hit us up. We'll do that. All right. And on that note, Peter, is there anything you want to say in closing before I pull the curtains?
Thank you to my mom, my dad. Of course, everybody that I worked with has been fantastic with this product, and the community has been really positive, and it's given me a lot of joy, but it's also giving all the people that work so hard on this product a lot of great vibes and great feelings. So thank you everyone for being interested, and thank you for you guys for having me.
Word. And on that note, we'll call it one. Thanks everybody.